going on, people? It's your boy Boxing Lowdown, and I'm back here with another video. Now, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Feel free to drop a comment if you like, guys, and I'll happily get back to you. Now, I'm bringing back the Mythical Monday videos. It's been a while, I apologize, but you know, we're back anyway. And let's get on to this week's, man. I want to hear what you guys think about this particular Mythical Monday video. For those of you that are new to the channel and haven't seen any of my Mythical Monday videos in the past, it's pretty much just a fantasy fight where I give my thoughts on it, and then I let you guys in the comments, you know, have a debate as to who you think would win. So this particular Mythical Monday matchup for this week, I'm going to go for one that's been spoken about before. Heavyweight division, two of Britain's finest heavyweights over the last few decades, and that is of course Lennox Lewis and this generation's heavyweight Tyson Fury. How would they have met? How would it have gone if these two would have met in their primes? Now, you could argue that Tyson Fury is either close to his prime or coming out of his prime, whereas Lennox Lewis in his prime was phenomenal. Tyson Fury has looked phenomenal, you know, against Deontay Wilder. He looked good against Vladimir Klitschko, you know, ending that run. You know, very good fighter, Tyson Fury, very slick, you know, brilliant for a big man, the way how he moves. And he can present an awkward challenge for anybody out there with his particular size, his movement, his brilliant footwork, and his deceptive power as well. He does have deceptive power, as we saw against Deontay Wilder. We can see what Tyson Fury can do against the Lennox Lewis. You know, I mean, nothing really needs to be said on what he's achieved in his career, beating every single man he's ever faced, one of only 3 heavyweights to do that. And Lennox Lewis, man, when I was growing up, he was just like, when he was focused and he was like determined, he could beat anyone. We saw that. The 2 losses on his career to Oliver McCall and to Hasim Rahman came when he wasn't fully focused. The Hasim Rahman fight, which was in South Africa, the first one, he was doing filming for like, I think he was doing some sort of filming or something for a film in between. He wasn't fully focused on Rahman, who was a bit unheralded at the time, shocked the world when he knocked Lennox Lewis out in South Africa. And we saw what Lennox Lewis did to him in the rematch. We saw what Lennox Lewis did to, you know, he defeated Oliver McCall in the rematch as well. Lennox Lewis, for me, man, when he was on his game, he was just formidable. Great jab, fantastic right hand, you know, very strong, big man. And he did everything well. He had a fantastic jab. You know, the right hand was brilliant. The partnership between him and Emmanuel Stewart worked brilliantly. And Lennox Lewis against Tyson Fury would have been one of those fights where Tyson Fury would have tried a lot of mental games, that he would have tried to go into Lennox Lewis's head, as he does with everybody. But Lennox Lewis he's an ice cold character, man. He doesn't let much get to him. We have seen in the past him get engaged in like brawls before fights, though, against the likes of Mike Tyson and against Hasim Rahman before the second fight. But we saw how those fights ended. You know, we saw what Lewis did to Mike Tyson. We saw what he did to Hasim Rahman. Would Tyson Fury been able to get in his head? Because Tyson Fury is a master at the mind games. He's very good at it. And would that have had an effect when these two would have fought? I think that the way how these two match up, you know, both of them are very big men. I'd say that Fury's probably got the better chin than Lewis. Lewis has been down a couple of times, but then Fury's been down a couple of times as well. So it's quite hard to say, actually, but I definitely would have Lewis as the harder puncher over Tyson Fury. You know, he's got much more, his fundamentals are more solid, whereas Tyson Fury is more unorthodox. You know, he presents different angles. He could cause a problem for Lewis in terms of the sort of angles that he gives him and the movement. Do you know what I mean? If he really wants to jump on his toes and be awkward, we've seen that in the past. And the thing with Tyson Fury is every time I pick against him, the guy goes out and proves me wrong. Do you know what I mean? And if he was to fight Lennox Lewis, I'm saying now I'd pick Lennox Lewis, but he always finds a way to prove you wrong, Tyson Fury. When he's on his game, when he's on form, would you have picked him to beat Lennox? For me, no. I think that Lennox Lewis, when he's on his form and he was on his game, he could defeat pretty much, he's a top 10 all-time heavyweight in my book, and Tyson Fury is not for me, not yet. He's far off that for me. He hasn't made a title defense at heavyweight as of yet. He hasn't beaten the sort of people that Lennox Lewis has beaten. Lennox Lewis is an all-time great for me, whereas Tyson Fury, the book is still being written. He's got the Deontay Wilder fight coming up in October. I need to see how he gets on there. He's expected to win that, but should he, you know, not be at his best? You see how focused Deontay Wilder is? We don't know. Lennox Lewis, for me, man, there's not many people I'd pick at heavyweight to beat him when he's on his game. That's how good he is. And I have to say the same for Tyson Fury. I don't think that he'd be able to defeat Lennox Lewis, but I think that he definitely has the sort of style to pose problems earlier on. He may give Lennox Lewis a puzzle to think about, you know, keep him on his toes, and he could box and move. But I just think eventually Lennox Lewis would catch up to him and defeat him. Look at when Lennox Lewis fought for Vitaly Klitschko. He was presented with a problem straight away against Vitaly Klitschko. He took that fight on short notice against him. He was losing that fight as well. It was the last fight of his career. He was out of his prime, but he found a way to win. He cut Vitaly Klitschko, and he worked on that eye, and eventually the fight got stopped. Lennox Lewis is one of those guys, man, that can adjust to the situation. And I think that eventually he would adjust to the sort of problems that Fury would pose for him. And I would have Lennox Lewis taking Fury out probably in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, I'd say. So I'd have Lennox Lewis defeating him. But it's an interesting fight, you know, all mythical. Nothing really, you know, there's no right or wrong answer here. So let me know what you guys think of this particular fight. Who wins it and why? What sort of style problems could Fury pose for Lennox Lewis? And what sort of problems does Lennox Lewis pose for Tyson Fury? I want to hear your thoughts on it. This is just quickly mine. And drop them in the comment section below, guys. And I'll catch you on the next Mythical Monday video next week. Make sure you guys tune in.